I'm going to show you how to cut a corner in a standard one-piece aluminum hat track. So this is our most common form of track. This mounts up under the eave and faces down. They're generally pretty easy to install, but when you get to a corner, you've got to cut it and bend it so that it wraps around that corner and looks nice and clean. So the tools that we're going to need, I've got a square right here. This just helps me keep my lines consistent each time. Some people like to freehand the cuts. I find if I measure each time, I get a more precise cut and it saves me time. You know, you just want to be have patience on these corners to make sure you get them done right. These are duckbill pliers. You can see they're very flat. This helps me press and straighten any bends in the track that I might create while cutting it. And then I've got my right and left tin snips right here. And you'll use these tools through the entire installation of any of these lights. And then I've just got a standard pencil right here to write on the back where I'm going to do my cuts. So on these tracks, what we generally do, of course this box is just helping us see the corner. These would normally be upside down. But if you're running this track and you get up to the edge of a corner like this, you've got to find a good cut point. So let's say our corner looks like this. So I'm going to take my pencil, and you could mark the corner right here. But one thing you got to be aware of is this flange right here is about 3/8 of an inch. So you actually want to have the center of your corner back about 3/8 of an inch from the corner of the edge of the roof, so that as you wrap that corner, this flange will then lay up along this edge of the roof without going over it. Otherwise, it's going to look like this when you get done with the corner. So now that I've marked my edge right here, I'm just going to go around to the other side and I'm going to put a little mark right there because I know that's where I'm at. I'll go ahead and move this box out of the way. Now that I have that line, I'm just going to lay my T-square right here. I'm going to draw my line, and now I'm going to use this section right here to measure. Okay, on one direction, I'm going to measure out 1/4 inch. I'm going to make a cut at that point, and then I need to go 1 inch from that quarter. That's going to be right here. Going the other direction from my center line, I'm going to measure out 1 5/8 inches. So I like to look at this and say, let me see. Okay, going the other direction from my center line, I'm going to go out 1 5/8 inches. So I'm going to line this up right there with my center line, and I come out 1. And I've got 1/2, so 5/8 is going to be right in between these two lines. So that's where I'm going to draw that line. Now I'm going to go through and I'm just going to straighten out these lines so that you can see where I'm at on here. There's that line. We've got this line. And that's our center line that's already drawn. And then we've got this line right here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw right here. Now basically what we're trying to do with this is the center of the track. We're going to cut a little triangle out right here and right here. This other section right here will be cut out, but it will only come down like this and then across. That's basically the shape we're cutting out of this track. Now we've got our right and left tin snips. You can see the reason they're different is because the cutters are opposite of each other. This is important because when you're cutting the track, you don't want to damage any pieces you're going to keep. And the shape of these usually damages one section or the other. When we look at this cut right here, if I'm to make this first cut and I cut it right here, I lift up on it, that's going to bend this section, as you'll see. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to cut this. Now I got to lift up on it in order to get my downward cut right here. And I just want to cut it all the way to the very bottom, just like that. So you can see it bent this part, but not this side. If I had used the other snips right there, I would have bent the opposite side. So now I want to come over here to this line, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to cut, and then I'm going to bend it up, and I'm going to cut down all the way to the bottom of the track. Now this section right here needs to be removed. I like to use my pliers right here, and I'm just going to take, and I'm going to bend it in a little bit, and I'm just loosening this up so that I can remove it. Okay, I'm going to break this out at the center of this track. You just want to be careful not to bend anything that you don't want to bend, but I'm just going to get this wiggling back and forth, and then that's going to pull out. Now that that's removed, I can go ahead and take out this section. Again, when you look at the tin snips, if I'm trying to cut this line, see, this doesn't line up right. It's the wrong one. I want to use these right here so I can get in, and I'm going to cut up like this, and I'm just trying to come to a peak right where I've drawn this line. And I'm going to take my other side, and I'm going to cut these through, and I'm going to cut those over again to that same center point, just right there. So now I've got a nice section cut out, everything's clean. You don't want to get any weird jagged edges or anything like that don't line up. We still got to cut this section out. So I'm going to come back in again, and we've got to use this section of pliers right here. I'm going to cut that, I'm going to bend up. That's okay, because we're removing that section. I'm going to come down. I've got that right there. Again, I'm going to take these, and I'm just going to bend this section. And that usually just breaks off like that. Now that we've got that all cut out, what we've got to do is cut this part right here so that we can get our bend in this. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that along that line. Make sure that's good and straight. I usually like to straighten that bend out right there. Now we're going to flip this over, and this is going to be the top piece of this corner. This piece is going to fold underneath. So we're just going to bend this across. As long as we cut this well, we're going to come up with a really nice 45-degree angle right here. For any reason you're not quite at a full 45, what you could do is pull this out and go ahead and cut off additional material right here. But if you do your cuts properly, you should come out and get a nice solid corner each time. So as you can see, I'm going to pull this box back over here again. If you're putting this on the roof, that's going to go ahead and line up with your outside corner just like this. Nice and clean. Now, some people might be asking, what do you do if you have an inside corner? Well, an inside corner is going to be the opposite of this. Let's say you're running along the roof line and Okay, now that we've got that nice corner done, let's go ahead and look at what that's going to look like with our fancy box here. See, if you cut that just right, it's going to sit up along your roof line just like this. So this is going to be if you have an outside corner, but you might say, okay, well, is anything different if you do an inside corner? And it is just a little bit different. So I'm going to pull that up, and what I mean by an inside corner is, let's say you're coming along and you've got to make this corner instead of this corner. Now that sounds a little bit different, but the thing that's different about that is as you're coming along with this piece of track. Now you'll remember previously, and let me jump back here, when we were measuring for an outside corner, we come up to the edge and I'm going to come in 3/8 of an inch as my center line because I have to make room for the flange as we make the corner. When we get to an inside corner, you might be saying, okay, where do I draw my center line? Is it the same as the outside corner? As the outside corner, we went 3/8 of an inch inside to make room for that flange. As you can see right here, we had to account for that as the center of that cut. When we come along here and we're trying to figure out where to measure that line, we have to account for the fact that this is 1.5 inches wide on this section of the track. We also have this 3/8 of an inch right here. So really, when we draw our center line, I'm going to go ahead and make a line right here at the corner, and I'm going to flip it over. Then I'm going to draw my line right here. But what I actually need to do is I need to come down 1 3/4 inches from where I'm at right now. So if I do that, I'm coming down to, well, let's measure it from right here. We've got this right here, and that's going to be our new center point. So I'm going to take that as the center, and I'm going to draw it across, just like I did before when I had my center point. Now, you have to look at this and say, okay, what section am I removing? Well, the section that I'm removing, as you flip this over, is this section right here, so it will bend around this corner. So on this center corner right here, this is where we're measuring for the parts we're going to remove. So we're going to do it just like we did it before. I'm going to take and I'm going to measure 1/4 inch this way, and then I'm going to measure an additional inch, and then I'm going to go out the other way, and I'm going to go 1 5/8 inches. Now I'm going to come across, I'm going to draw those lines. And right here. And then what we're removing is this section and this section, and then of course right here we're going to be cutting it down like this. This is just where that corner initially was. So when we take and remove all this, this is going to fold in, and it's going to hit this point right here, which is just past the center point. And because it's just past, that means it's going to break right here and allow room for that flange to come across. But the cuts and everything will be the same at that point as what we've already gone over. You just have to remember, when you measure, you'll measure right at your point here. You're going to flip it over 1 3/4 inches down. That's going to set your new center line, and then you measure everything from there.